This is your statement, sir. While studying genocide, we are comparing all genocides we know over last decades. However, we are almost silent on the current unfolding genocide in front of our eyes for almost 10 months. Are we aware of this contradiction? Are all genocide researchers and all activists aware about what is going on in Gaza and why there is some people are silent or not speaking loudly as they should speak about what is going on in Gaza? Is it a Western hypocrisy? Is it superiority of certain populations? Some genocides should be speak about some genocides and other we shouldn't speak. Aren't we equal?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that all people are silent about what's going on because, as I said before, there are protests throughout the world, really, about what's happening in Gaza. I think the difficulty that politicians in the West have is that they are afraid to speak out and call it for what it is, genocidal crimes, because of the political implications. The fact that Israel is a close ally to the United States, and to some extent to other countries in the West. It's really politics that's holding them back. And I know that in my own country, the former Conservative government and the current Labour Party or Labour government all say that the fighting should stop and that the killings should end as quickly as possible. And I'm guessing what they would prefer to happen is that they want people to negotiate, to sit round a table and talk about how best to move forward. And I think that deep in their hearts, that the politicians in the West would prefer that the state of Palestine be recognized by the UN, by the politicians, the countries in the West. But they know that by doing so publicly is going to upset the Israeli government. And, there are similarities. I keep referring back to Bosnia, but as you know, Dr. Eman, there were long discussions in the UN from politicians on all sides about how best to stop the war in Bosnia. And one of the problems that the UN had in particular was that they didn't want to be accused of taking sides by supporting the Bosniaks. But it reached a point, as I said, where until Srebrenica happened, they felt that they couldn't allow this to happen again. And what I find quite interesting was that to some extent, the American and the British governments realized that when Milosevic started his fourth war in Kosovo in 1999, that the same thing that happened in Srebrenica could happen again. So they acted very quickly. Within 10 months of the Serbs trying to ethnically cleanse the Albanian Muslims, they bombed Belgrade. They sent in peacekeepers, and the war ended very abruptly because they didn't want a repeat of what happened. Now, to take that forward to what's happening in Palestine, it's a much more difficult political position for those governments to take to side on with the Palestinians simply because they fear about what may happen with their relationship with Israel. But sooner or later, they're going to have to take those sides. But as I said before, I think it's going to take a change in governments with a different an entirely different attitude before they will approve or support any action against the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. And so it's at the moment it seems an impossible dilemma, but yet the killings go on, as you say, daily. And I feel so sad for you on a personal level, Dr. Eman, because you're a very close neighbour to what's happening in Palestine and are affected deeply by what you see and hear. And as a doctor and a humanitarian, I'm conscious that that must affect you very, very deeply, emotionally and morally, and about what's going on. So, but I think it's worth pointing out that other countries in the West are much more remote from what's happening. They only get so much information about what's happening. I know that news media such as Al Jazeera report constantly and send images of the atrocities that are happening in Palestine. But we're in this country and in the United States, we're given a much more shortened version of what's happening there. It's come off the top of the news, where it once was the top news story for 6 months at least. Now it's put to the not to the very end. It's only when we hear of a particular atrocity that we are informed about it quite briefly. But nevertheless, there are many people in the West who are protesting about what's happening in Gaza. People who feel deeply, very deeply about the atrocities that are happening there, and are calling out to the politicians to do something to stop it. But how long that's going to take before the politicians take action is anybody's guess, I guess.